Well, the results of the Scottish referendum are finally in. We've all waited with bated breath for such a long time. I know I was up at the crack of dawn today looking on my phone to see the news, and I'm not even Scottish and I don't live in Scotland. So I can only imagine how the whole of Scotland felt yesterday and last night and this morning. Today has been a momentous day in British history and in Scottish history. The reason I'm talking to you today about the referendum is because there are lessons that we can all take from what's happened here, and we can take those lessons forward in life, whether it's in personal relationships such as family relationships and friendships, or whether it's in business relationships with colleagues, with suppliers, with customers and with competitors even. What can we learn from today? Well, today is not the day for angry recriminations, and it's not the day for gleeful gloating either. Whichever side of the referendum you were on, whichever side of a battle of wills you're on, if it is a battle of wills that can only end in one person being happy and the other not, or one group of people being happy and the other not, which is not an ideal outcome, but that's the only outcome in a referendum, if you do end up in that kind of battle, for want of a better word, then you need to find a way to be gracious in either defeat or in victory. And I was very pleased to see that all parties today were actually very gracious in their comments after the results were announced. And Alex Salmond, who had been very controversial for a lot of people throughout the process, did actually say that he had put this into the hands of a democratic process, and that the democratic process had happened and the people had voted. So things happened and people have been gracious about it, which is great. And this is something that we can learn when we're dealing with disappointments in business and in our personal lives. How to be gracious when things perhaps don't go our way, but also how to be particularly gracious when things do go our way, because that's equally important in terms of how those relationships move forward. And that leads me to point number two. Point number two being about the relationships, about how you move forward after a dispute. How do you progress beyond that point of dispute? Because this has been going on for a long time now in the UK, and now it's time to actually stop looking backwards and look forwards. How does the United Kingdom, how does Scotland, how does England and Wales, how do we all move forward towards a common goal of actually living together as a unified union country that we still are? And how do we make that work for everybody? And how do we ensure that our economy stays strong? How do we ensure that we are politically stable, etc.? Because that is important. And if we keep battling, then we can't achieve progress moving forward. And that's exactly the same if you're thinking of personal relationships and of business relationships. So having an open mind, listening to the other side, accepting that what is done, and actually working together on finding solutions that work for as many people as possible is the key here. And the final point really is your attitude, because there will be 1.6 million Scottish voters that are very, very unhappy today with the result. There are probably far more people than that, all the people who are Scottish and couldn't vote, and all the people who are not Scottish who had an opinion in the matter. And there will be lots of them that are unhappy with the result. And there are always things in life that can have that effect on us, momentous events, whether they're personal, whether they're political, whether they're business related. How do we move on from that? Because if you hold on to bitterness and anger and lash out, that's not going to lead to progress and the moving forward that we've just talked about, but it's also going to be detrimental to your health, to your long-term well-being. It's going to raise your stress levels, and that's going to, in the long term, damage your capacity to thrive and to succeed at whatever you want to do, and affect your family, your relationships and everything else because of that bitterness. So you need to be able to focus on something that's going to drive you forward. Now, one tip I have, and that's something that's really made me rejoice through the whole process, is to actually think that for somebody of my generation, I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, we have actually known the longest period in Central Europe of stability that anybody ever has. After two devastating world wars, we have lived through a good period of time, and long may it continue. So when you look around the world and look at all the conflicts that are happening, for me, a major source of happiness and gratitude is that we do live in a country where this referendum could take place, where the people have the power to get the information they need and make an informed choice and vote. And that is absolutely crucial, and I'm so pleased to see that so many people in Scotland did vote, because that is absolutely fundamental to a democracy. So we live in a democracy where this was possible as a process, and that is something that can help a lot of people, I think, if you focus on that, to move forward in a positive way and not dwell on the bitter disappointment, potentially. So you can choose how your feelings affect you, you can choose your actions, you can choose your attitude, and you can choose that this is something that's happened and it needs to be put in context and it needs to be put to one side, and so that you can move on with your life. So you can choose happiness, because happiness is a deliberate state of mind. If you want to know a little bit more about happiness, this is my very short plug of my book. I have written a book, Recipe for Happiness, 9 Essential Ingredients to a Happy Life. It's available as a paperback as well as an ebook on Amazon and also on Google Play. If you go to recipeforhappiness.co.uk, that's recipe-for-happiness.co.uk, you will find the links to all the versions of the book. So if you're interested in getting that, recipeforhappiness.co.uk. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.